finished a workable game this time, and it is playable on itch. If you want to go check it out, I'll have a link in the description. I'm going to talk about some of the successes during this game dev loop and some of the failures, and then I'm going to show a little bit of a demo at the end. The first thing I started with was getting the Sudoku level generation working. This seemed pretty simple to do at first, but it actually goes quite a bit deeper than you would think. Puppy, you're in my shot, bud. First I thought it was like, oh yeah, you just make a grid and then you remove some numbers, and the number of numbers that you remove is how difficult the puzzle will be. Something I didn't realize is that Sudoku puzzles all have exactly one solution. So when you create a puzzle, you need to make sure that when you take out the numbers, that you're not creating like an ambiguous puzzle that can have multiple solutions. There's also a lot of expert solving techniques that I wasn't aware of, like the X-wing, swordfish, forcing chains, the XY wing. You need to know these so that you can analyze the difficulty of the puzzle that you create. I didn't end up doing all of those, but I did some of them to get a good idea of the general difficulty of a puzzle. So the first thing I did was I set ranges for the hints that should be given depending on the difficulty that you choose. Oh my god. 17 numbers on a grid is the lowest possible number of existing numbers you need to start a puzzle and get a unique solution. They haven't been able to find any grids that have 16 numbers that create a unique Sudoku puzzle. After I defined the different ranges for the amount of hints that were needed for each difficulty level, I created a backtracking algorithm that would create a complete puzzle. This was a pretty simple recursive algorithm. Just a little reminder, a recursive function is a function that calls itself. So kind of like a dream within a dream within a dream, and it just keeps propagating down until you hit like the end, and then it like pops everything back up. A backtracking algorithm is one that kind of like goes down every possibility, and if it hits a dead end, it comes back up, and then it keeps going and doing that until it's explored the entire thing. Once I'd created a filled puzzle, then I moved on to randomly removing some of the cells to match the difficulty that I was looking for. Something that made this tricky was every time I removed a cell, I had to then go and run a uniqueness checking algorithm on the current puzzle. That meant that once you remove a cell, you then run this algorithm that solves the puzzle and checks how many different ways it can solve the puzzle. If it can only solve it one way, then it's a unique solution. After I'd ran that algorithm in a way that removed as many cells as I needed to get the puzzle I wanted, I then ran one more algorithm that determined the difficulty. And the reason that I needed to do this was because sometimes you can remove only a few cells but create a situation where an advanced move is needed to solve the puzzle. So in this algorithm that analyzed the difficulty, I counted the number and the type of solving steps that were needed to solve the puzzle. Some of the solving steps that I tested were the naked singles, the hidden singles, and then advanced moves I kind of just grouped into one because I wanted to move on and work on other things in the game. Depending on the number of naked singles and hidden singles and advanced moves that were needed to solve the puzzle, as well as how many hints were given at the beginning, which are the filled cells, that helped me determine whether or not it was an easy, medium, hard, or expert puzzle. Finally, I limited the number of attempts there were to generate a puzzle to 50 because I didn't want to get stuck in an infinite loop where it was trying to find a unique puzzle that had exactly one solution but wasn't able to because of the constraints that were set. Okay, next step. Next, I implemented some of the functionality, some of the user interface for the game. This included like the cell selection, being able to interact with the grid and select stuff. It also included a undo functionality, an erase functionality, and hint functionality, as well as a timer and a little thing that tells you how hard your current puzzle is. Another thing that I added that I didn't anticipate on adding when I started was the candidate functionality. In Sudoku, sometimes in order to find a solution, you need to write down all of the possible tiles it could be. You'll be able to choose, let's say, numbers 1 and 5, and be able to have them kind of just annotated very small inside the cell. So you know, okay, this cell could be either a 1 and a 5. That also had to be hooked into the undo, erase, and hint functionality. I also took all of the art that I had made as the mock-up for the game, kind of chopped that up so that it could work as a UI. I also added some animations for the buttons, which I really love, and then I also added animations for some of the cells. I didn't get to all of them because I ran out of time. I also spent a surprisingly long time going back and forth on the look of the locked cells. Were you eating my shoe? This is the second time he's done this. Oh, that's so frustrating. Whatever. Where's your stick? Eat your stick. What was I saying? Oh yeah, the locked cells. They have a gray background but have the same art as the regular cells. I did a variation for this where the locked cells actually had just the outline of the image, but I noticed when I was doing the puzzles myself that it was really hard to kind of see the correlation between the different images and made solving it and keeping that kind of information in my brain harder. I can't believe you broke my shoe again. That's so sad. I added a quick level selection ability with a button group, and then the last thing, the music. The music is amazing, and my sister made the music, and she's incredible. You should really just play the game to listen to the music. I love it. I think it's perfect. I don't know how she did it in such a short amount of time. Okay, let's talk about the failures now. We'll start with the failures I was able to overcome. One of the things I ran into when I was exporting it yesterday was threading situations. Quick overview on threading. Threading is when you kind of tell your computer to switch back and forth between doing two different things so that it's able to keep both of those things running simultaneously. This is really useful if you want to process something while something else runs in the background. The puzzle generation was a really good use case for this. I could generate them in the background while they were working on the current puzzle, or I could have a cute loading screen that had a cute animation that would run while the puzzle was generating in the background. Well, turns out threading doesn't really work as an HTML non-cross-origin policy isolated website situation. It doesn't work because there are these certain exploits that takes advantage of threading to be able to steal your data. There is supposed to be a fix for it for browsers and stuff, but I think it ended up being more complicated for certain kinds of sites. It doesn't work on itch.io, which is the site I use to host the game. So I had to go back last minute and take out all the threading that I did. The other thing that was fairly annoying and kind of scary was Godot glitched out randomly yesterday. Also, right when I was like this close to hitting export and finishing it for good, it put the folder that had all my art assets in it inside itself. I don't know how. Every time I tried to open the folder, I would see like the parent folder, and then inside the parent folder was itself again, and it just kept going down and down, and I couldn't get to the files. I just deleted everything and recreated the directory. Getting into some of the things that I didn't overcome, that kind of happened in two different categories. There were things I didn't get to, and there were things I would have liked to improve on more than I was able to. Oh, what the flip. It's just a scooter, man. Starting with the things I didn't get to, I didn't animate all the cells, which I was sad for because I think that would have added a lot to the game. I didn't add a leaderboard either. I didn't animate the foliage. I didn't add an info page with information on how to play Sudoku. I also didn't add the feature where you can collect little bits and bobs for completing each puzzle that I had talked about in the brainstorm of this game, which would have been fun, but it was just too much and I needed to scope down. Some things I would have liked to improve on include making the look for the containers and the grid a little bit nicer, and also making it stuck to a square so that the ratio kind of stayed the same and didn't get kind of wonky when you resize the window. I would have liked to make the pop-up dialogues look a little bit nicer, as well as the buttons. I would have liked to make them all custom if I had time with custom animations and stuff. I'd also like to have made the game compatible with mobile so you could play it on your phone. Lastly, I would have liked to make the puzzle generation algorithm a little bit more sophisticated so that it could determine whether or not you needed any of those other advanced moves to complete the puzzle. A little reminder on how to play Sudoku is you have 9 tiles. Your goal is to fill this entire grid with all the tiles. The rules for the placement of the tiles is that only one of them can exist in every row and column, and these 3x3 blocks. The candidate functionality lets you add guesses. I'm just gonna add the crow, skull, and cauldron to all of these. Here's a great example of a naked single. So if you look at this row, it's obvious that there's only one left, so it can only be one thing. And that one thing is a spider. So it has to be a spider because there are no spiders anywhere else in here. A hidden single is something I use quite a lot when I'm solving these. I'll look for one symbol. We have the tombstone. We have a tombstone here and a tombstone here, and I use these as kind of like a washout this entire row and this entire row. So I know that for this block, the tombstone has to be either here or here. And then I can go and do that with the columns. I see here, there's a tombstone in this column, so I know for a fact that a tombstone can't be here, so I can remove that. And that means that the tombstone has to be here. That's a hidden single. That's what I use mostly. I have the animations, undo button, the erase, and the hint. These are the pop-up windows I was talking about. They're not super cute, but they get the job done. You can barely read these though, which is problematic. Here's our timer, here's our type of puzzle. The animation that I have for these bottom three, here's the spider one, here's the cauldron one, and then the tombstone one. Beware of clicking the expert button. Sometimes creating the puzzle takes a really long time and it can seem frozen because of that threading issue I talked about earlier. If you want to go check out the game, it's on my itch.io page under Coding Kook. It's called Halloween Sudoku. I'll have a link in the description for you to check out. Feel free to leave a comment here or there telling me what you think, if you have any tips, if you have any bugs that you ran into, or if you just want to say hey. I guess that's it. I hope everyone has a lovely rest of your October and has a great Halloween. And thanks for watching. I can't believe you ate my shoe again.